In the heart of an arid Texas in 1887, the small town of Dust Creek sweltered under the scorching sun. The central plaza, dominated by a weather-beaten wooden gallows, bore witness to the summary judgments that maintained local order. Clara Whitmore, a young teacher from Boston, only 23 years old, found herself trapped in the damp jail cell, accused of murdering the town banker. Her blue eyes, once bright with hope, now reflected the despair of one who knew the reputation of Texan justice. Sheriff Thompson paced nervously in the corridor, constantly checking his gold pocket watch. The townswomen whispered on shaded porches, while the men gathered in the saloon debating the outsider's guilt. The smell of tanned leather and sweat mingled with the aroma of strong coffee escaping from kitchens. Clara knew that with the first ray of sun, she would walk to the gallows. News of the impending hanging reached Cole Maddox through a traveling merchant at a camp near the Brazos River. Cole, a 35-year-old man with scars that told stories of duels and pursuits, was known throughout Texas as the deadliest gunslinger in the state. His black horse, Shadow, galloped across the dusty plains towards Dust Creek, raising clouds of reddish earth. The cowboy wore his worn leather hat and the long coat that concealed his Colt .45s in his double holster. Something about Clara's story didn't make sense. He knew killers, and a teacher from the east didn't fit the profile. Stars shone brightly in the clear sky when Cole spotted the first lights of the town. His instinct, sharpened by years in the field, told him there were more secrets buried in Dust Creek than bodies in the local cemetery. The truth needed to come out before dawn. Cole entered the Golden Horseshoe Saloon with firm steps, his spurs clinking on the wooden floor. Men stopped playing cards and conversations immediately ceased. Everyone recognized the imposing silhouette of the gunslinger. The thick air was heavy with cigarette smoke and tension. Bartholomew Hayes, the wealthiest merchant in town, paled upon seeing Cole approach the bar. Sheriff Thompson, sweating coldly, tried to maintain composure as he drank his whiskey. Cole discovered that the dead banker, Edmund Pierce, had uncovered a money laundering scheme involving Hayes and the sheriff. Clara had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, becoming the perfect scapegoat. With each question asked by the cowboy, more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Hayes offered money, then threats, but Cole remained impassive. The storm was brewing, and everyone knew that blood would be shed before the truth came to light. At 3 a.m, Cole stormed the sheriff's office with the precision of a seasoned predator. His boots made no sound as he neutralized the guards with swift, precise blows. In the cell, Clara looked up, her eyes swollen from crying, disbelieving the figure materializing in the shadows. "You're innocent," Cole declared in a hoarse voice as he opened the lock with a small pick. Outside, Hayes and his henchmen surrounded the building, determined to silence them forever. The ensuing shootout echoed through the deserted streets like thunder on a stormy night. Cole moved like a deadly shadow, his guns spitting fire and lead. Clara, despite her fear, helped reload the pistols with trembling but determined hands. When the last shot was fired, Hayes lay dead in the dust, and Sheriff Thompson confessed his crimes to the entire town that had awakened with the noise. Truth had finally triumphed over corruption. The rising sun painted the Dust Creek sky with golden and crimson hues as Cole prepared to leave. Clara, now free and with her name cleared, approached the cowboy with hesitant steps. She wanted to thank him, perhaps ask to accompany him, but the words died in her throat as she looked into those grey eyes that had seen too much. Cole adjusted his hat, his calloused hands holding Shadow's reins. "Justice has been served," he simply said, mounting his horse. The entire town watched in respectful silence as the gunslinger rode away, gradually disappearing into the vastness of the Texas plains. Clara stood on the porch of the boarding house, a hand shielding her eyes from the sun, watching until he became just a speck on the horizon. The warm wind carried the distant echo of Shadow's hooves, and with it, the legend of another feat by the most feared cowboy in Texas, who had saved an innocent life and brought justice where there had only been corruption. Dust Creek would never be the same after that night of revelations and revenge. Clara resumed her lessons at the makeshift school, but now she taught not only letters and numbers, but also courage and justice. The children listened, fascinated, to her stories about the mysterious cowboy who had defied the whole town to save an innocent. A new sheriff was appointed, an upright man from Austin, and order was restored without the shadow of corruption. Months later, Clara received a letter with no return address, containing only a golden horseshoe and the words, "So you remember that justice always finds a way." She smiled, placing the gift in a small wooden box, along with the memory of the man who had given her back not only her life but also her faith in humanity. Meanwhile, throughout Texas, whispers circulated about Cole Maddox, the noble-hearted gunslinger who appeared when justice failed, bringing hope to the helpless and fear to the corrupt who thought they were above the law. 3 months had passed since the events that shook Dust Creek, and life seemed to have returned to its natural rhythm. Clara taught with renewed vigor at the town school, where the children looked at her with a mix of admiration and curiosity. The new sheriff, Marcus Wheeler, an upright man from Austin, had brought a sense of security the town hadn't known in years. Mornings were filled with the sound of children reciting lessons and the aroma of fresh bread from Mrs. Murphy's bakery. However, Clara couldn't forget Cole Maddox's grey eyes or the sense of security his presence had provided. She often found herself gazing at the horizon during sunsets, hoping to see a familiar silhouette riding back. Honest merchants now prospered without the shadow of corruption, and the central plaza, once dominated by the ominous gallows, had become a gathering place where families met on Sundays after church service. Meanwhile, 200 miles away, Cole Maddox rode through the arid lands near the Mexican border, pursuing a band of cattle rustlers who terrorized local ranchers. His face was leaner, marked by the relentless sun and sleepless nights in the open. Shadow, his loyal black horse, showed signs of exhaustion after weeks of relentless pursuit. Cole stopped near a creek to water the animal and examine the tracks left by the criminals. The warm wind carried the scent of sage and dry earth, while vultures circled in the cloudless blue sky. He opened his canteen and sparingly drank the warm water, his thoughts inevitably returning to the young, blue-eyed teacher he had saved. A strange, almost unknown feeling took hold of his chest, something he couldn't name but which made him question if a life of solitude and violence was truly all that was left for him. Back in Dust Creek, Clara received an unexpected visit. Sarah Mitchell, an elegant middle-aged woman from Dallas, sought information about Cole Maddox. She introduced herself as a representative of a law firm and explained that Cole had inherited a considerable property from a distant uncle, but needed to be found to sign the legal documents. Clara felt her heart quicken at his name, but maintained her composure as she served tea in her modest living room. Sarah revealed that the inheritance included a prosperous ranch in the Colorado River Valley and a substantial sum of money, enough for Cole to abandon the dangerous life of a gunslinger if he wished. The lawyer observed Clara's reaction with keen eyes, noting how the young teacher struggled to hide her interest. "He meant something special to you, didn't he?" Sarah asked gently. Clara blushed but didn't deny it, silently admitting that her feelings for the mysterious cowboy were deeper than she had realized. News of the inheritance spread quickly through the town, and soon everyone was talking about the fate of the man who had saved Clara and restored justice in Dust Creek. The telegraph operator, Murphy O'Connor, a red-haired Irishman of expansive temperament, offered to send messages to all nearby towns in an attempt to locate Cole. Clara, moved by a force she didn't fully understand, decided to write him a personal letter. Her hands trembled as she carefully chose each word, trying to express her gratitude and perhaps something deeper she didn't dare name directly. "Dear Mr. Maddox," she began, "I hope this letter finds you in good health. Life in Dust Creek has changed completely since your departure, and not a day goes by without someone mentioning your name with gratitude." She paused, biting her lower lip, questioning whether she should reveal her true feelings or maintain the safe formality of respectful gratitude. While Clara wrestled with her emotions, Cole had finally cornered the cattle rustlers in a rocky canyon near the Rio Grande. The confrontation was swift and decisive. His reputation was not exaggerated. But as he collected the recovered horses, a stray bullet from one of the dying criminals struck his left shoulder. The pain was intense, and blood stained his blue cotton shirt. Cole managed to reach the town of Eagle Pass, where a retired Army doctor, Dr. Henderson, tended to his wound. During the forced days of recovery, Cole received a telegram forwarded by several towns. Someone in Dust Creek was looking for him urgently. His heart, usually controlled like tempered steel, quickened at the thought that Clara might be in danger again. Ignoring the doctor's protests, he saddled Shadow and immediately headed east. His mind focused only on returning to the town where he had left a part of himself he didn't even know existed. The journey back to Dust Creek was a mix of anticipation and apprehension for Cole. His shoulder still ached with every movement, but the need to know if Clara was safe outweighed any physical discomfort. When he finally spotted the first buildings of the town at dusk, a sense of relief washed over him. Everything seemed peaceful and normal. He rode slowly down Main Street, noticing the respectful greetings from residents and the genuine smiles of children playing near the fountain. Clara was leaving school when she saw him. Their eyes met through the golden dust raised by the wind, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. She ran towards him, forgetting all propriety, her skirts fluttering as her steps echoed on the wooden porch. "Cole!" she cried, and in that simple name was all the joy, relief, and unexpressed feelings of months of longing. He dismounted slowly, his grey eyes softening for the first time in years, as he realized that perhaps he had found something worth stopping running for. The reunion between Cole and Clara was observed by the entire town, which gathered discreetly on porches and at windows to witness the moment. Sarah Mitchell, the lawyer from Dallas, approached respectfully when the two finally separated from their prolonged embrace. She explained the inheritance in a professional voice, but her eyes shone with satisfaction at seeing the obvious connection between the cowboy and the teacher. Cole listened in silence, processing the information that he now owned a prosperous ranch and enough resources to start a new life. Clara carefully held his wounded hand, noticing the makeshift bandage under his torn shirt. "You're hurt," she murmured, concern evident in her soft voice. Dr. Patterson, the local physician, insisted on examining Cole's injury, while the entire town mobilized to prepare a welcome dinner in the renovated saloon. The women brought their best dishes, and the men arranged the tables, all eager to celebrate the return of the man who had saved their community from corruption. That night, under the bright Texas stars, Cole finally found the courage to express feelings he had harbored during months of solitude. He and Clara walked slowly through the plaza, now illuminated by colorful lanterns hung for the special occasion. The sound of fiddles and accordions escaped from the saloon, where residents celebrated with dancing and genuine laughter. "Clara," Cole began, his normally firm voice now hesitant, "during all these months away from here, I couldn't get you out of my thoughts. Your courage, your strength, you changed something in me I didn't even know existed." Clara stopped walking, turning to face him under the soft glow of the full moon. Their hands found each other naturally, fingers intertwined as if they had always belonged together. "I thought of you every day too," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You gave me more than life. You gave me hope that there are still honorable men in this world." The kiss they shared was tender and full of unspoken promises. The following months brought significant changes for both. Cole decided to accept the inheritance and settle permanently in the region, but not before making a last trip to finalize pending business and bring some personal belongings from the inherited ranch. Clara continued teaching, but now with a new light in her eyes and a constant smile that did not go unnoticed by the curious children. They exchanged letters weekly, each more intimate than the last, planning a shared future that had once seemed impossible for both. Cole hired honest workers for the ranch and began raising quality cattle, while Clara organized the school library and started evening classes for adults who had never learned to read. The town prospered under the new, honest administration, and the couple became a symbol of hope and renewal. Their evening strolls through the plaza were anticipated by residents who saw them as an example that true love could flourish even in the most adverse circumstances. In the autumn of that year, Cole finally proposed to Clara during a picnic by the creek that ran near town. He had chosen a spot shaded by ancient oaks where the sound of the running water created a natural melody. With trembling hands, he presented a simple but elegant ring, made by the jeweler in the neighboring town with gold found in the distant mountains. "Her Clara Whitmore," he said, kneeling on the soft grass, "you taught me that there's something more valuable than a gunslinger's reputation, the love of a good woman. Will you marry me and help me build a life away from violence?" Tears of joy streamed down Clara's face as she said yes, her voice choked with emotion. They remained embraced as the sun set, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold, symbolizing the new dawn of their intertwined lives. The first stars appeared as silent witnesses to their eternal commitment. The wedding was celebrated in Dust Creek's Methodist Church on a sunny spring morning, with the entire community present to witness the union that had grown from the ashes of adversity. Clara wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved during the journey from the east, while Cole wore his best black suit, his weapons finally put away forever. Reverend Matthews conducted the ceremony with touching words about redemption and new beginnings, subtly referencing the extraordinary journey that had brought these two hearts together. After the vows, the celebration continued late into the night at the saloon, decorated with wildflowers and colorful ribbons. Cole surprised everyone by revealing that he had learned to play the guitar during his travels, serenading Clara with a song he had composed himself. The night ended with dancing under the stars, as the residents of Dust Creek celebrated not just a marriage, but the definitive triumph of hope over despair, of love over solitude. Years later, when they told their story to their grandchildren playing on the prosperous ranch they had built together, Cole and Clara always emphasized how a moment of absolute despair had turned into the greatest blessing of their lives. The Golden Horseshoe Ranch, named in honor of the symbol Clara had kept as a memento, became known throughout Texas for the quality of its cattle and the hospitality of its owners. Cole never touched a gun again, except to protect cattle from natural predators, finding in family life the adventure and purpose he had always sought on the dusty roads. Clara expanded the local school, bringing in teachers from other towns and building a reputation for educational excellence that attracted families from across the region. Together, they proved that even the darkest beginnings can blossom in the light of true love, and that sometimes fate uses the most desperate moments to guide us exactly where we need to be. Dust Creek prospered, and its story became legend, the town where justice prevailed and love conquered even the heart of Texas's most feared cowboy. 10 years had passed since that fateful morning when Clara was almost hanged, and the Golden Horseshoe Ranch was now one of the most respected properties in the county. Cole, at 45, had definitively traded his holster for the reins of a thriving cattle ranching business. His hands, once quick on the trigger, were now skilled at breaking colts and mending fences. Clara, radiant at 33, had expanded the school to 3 classrooms and hired 2 assistant teachers from Austin. Their 3 children, 8-year-old Thomas, 6-year-old Mary, and little Samuel, 3, ran through the pasture like free winds, their laughter echoing across the green property. The scars of Cole's violent past were still there, but now they served only as reminders of a former life, replaced by the softer marks left by honest work and the love of a family. Sunday after Sunday, the Maddox family occupied the front pew of the church, living symbols of redemption and the transformative power of true love. The peace they had built was suddenly threatened when a telegram arrived from El Paso, bringing news Cole hoped he would never receive again. Jake Morrison, a former partner from his gunslinging days, had escaped from prison and sworn revenge against all who had betrayed him years ago. Morrison blamed Cole for his capture, which occurred during a botched bank robbery when Cole decided to abandon his criminal life. The telegram sent by the El Paso sheriff warned that Morrison was gathering a gang of deserters and criminals, moving towards Travis County. Clara immediately noticed the tension in her husband's face as he read the message, his features hardening as they hadn't in years. "He's coming for me," Cole murmured, crumpling the paper between his fingers. "And he won't hesitate to hurt you to get to me." The shadow of the past had returned to haunt the perfect life they had built, threatening to destroy everything Cole had fought to become a better man. That night, after putting the children to bed, Cole and Clara talked at length on the porch, the sound of crickets filling the silence between their careful words. Cole explained about Morrison, a violent and resentful man who had never accepted his decision to abandon his criminal life. "I could take the children and leave," Clara suggested, her voice firm despite the obvious fear in her eyes. "Take Thomas, Mary, and Samuel to my sister in Boston until this passes." Cole shook his head, holding her hands in his. "Morrison knows me too well. He knows running isn't my nature, and he'd pursue you to the ends of the earth." They remained silent for a moment, watching the stars that seemed more distant that night. Clara finally spoke, her voice filled with determination. "Then we'll face this together, as we always have. You're not the man you were, Cole Maddox. You are my husband, father of my children, and a man of honor. Morrison can bring his past, but he'll have to face who you've become." Preparation for the inevitable confrontation began the next morning. Cole sent the children to stay with the Patterson family in town, where they would be safe under the protection of Sheriff Wheeler and the honest men of Dust Creek. He checked the integrity of each weapon stored in the barn, his hands rediscovering the fatal familiarity with cold metal. Clara insisted on staying, despite her husband's protests, arguing that she knew every corner of the ranch better than any man and could be useful. They transformed the house into a makeshift fortress, blocking windows and preparing defensive positions. The loyal ranch hands, men like Diego Ramirez and Tom Anderson, who had worked for Cole for years, offered to fight alongside their boss. "This place gave us a decent life," Diego said, adjusting his Winchester. "We won't let outlaws destroy it." Cole felt a deep emotion as he realized he wouldn't fight alone. He had built not just a family, but a community willing to defend him. Morrison arrived at dusk, bringing 5 armed men mounted on horses weary from the long journey. Cole watched them from the second-story window, recognizing the arrogant bearing of his former partner even from a distance. Morrison had aged poorly. His hair was gray and unkempt, and a new scar cut across his left cheek. "Cole Maddox!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the valley. "I know you're in there with your perfect family. Did you think you could forget about me and live like a respectable man? You owe me a blood debt." Cole appeared on the porch, unarmed but imposing, his upright posture showing the confidence of a man who had found his place in the world. "Morrison," he replied, his voice carrying authority. "You're on private property, threatening my family. You can leave now and no one needs to get hurt, or you can find out that the man you knew 10 years ago has learned a few lessons about protecting what he loves." Morrison laughed bitterly, drawing his gun. "You were always cocky, Cole. Today you'll pay for abandoning me at that bank." The ensuing shootout was brief but intense, echoing through the valley like a sudden storm. Cole moved with the lethal precision he had never completely lost. But now he fought not for fame or money, but for the right to protect his family and the life he had built. Clara, strategically positioned in the kitchen, provided cover with a shotgun, surprising Morrison with her accurate aim. The loyal ranch hands fought with the determination of men defending their home, while Morrison and his outlaws discovered they had gravely underestimated the strength of a united community. When the smoke cleared, Morrison lay dead in the yard. His dream of revenge ended forever. Cole remained standing, lightly wounded in the arm, but victorious, surrounded by the men who had chosen to fight by his side. In that moment, he fully understood that he had ceased to be the solitary gunslinger. Now he was part of something larger, something worth any sacrifice. The shadow of the past had finally been banished by the light of love and loyalty he had cultivated during a decade of honest living.